What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Hello, hello.
We're gonna get started here in a second.
Hello, hello.
Everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Justice, you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Exciting call today, guys. Exciting call. Set up fixed up a little bit. Let's do
What kind
that.
of watch are you sporting today, Dylan?
What's
What's
that?
that timepiece? That watch you got on, man?
Oh, this
What is
one,
that?
it's an Omega Speedmaster.
Nice.
What's up, Eli? How you
What's
doing?
up, boss? How are you?
Doing amazing. We're just gonna wait. I think more people are slowly gonna join in here. I like your setup, man. Where's that? It looks like an industrial kind of vibe.
Yeah, I'm in Wynwood. I'm like 20 minutes away from where I met you.
Yeah,
The Art district. This is an art studio. My
Yeah.
bedroom's up there. It's an art studio with no art. I got
yeah.
a couch and a bunch of chairs for when I do events. Simple.
It's a nice spot.
No rug, nothing.
Got a good feel to it.
Perfect place for closing.
What's that?
Perfect place for closing.
That's it. Yeah, it's like the zoning here, like this building, some people run their like gyms out of here. Some people run like beauty salons. So for tax benefits, I can write it off fully as an office, but eventually I'm gonna put some humans in here and have a little little sales floor like Bill has.
All right. Okay. I know people are gonna slowly start trickling in. I think we'll give it a couple minutes here. We're recording this. Perfect. All right. How's everyone doing today? Everyone's good? Everyone got
Doing
their,
great, Dylan.
everyone's got their.
Excellent, thank you.
Fantastic.
Good. All right, I will slightly change the settings for this call. If you guys have questions at any point, feel free to, hey Chantal, can you make me an admin, please? If you guys have questions at any point, feel free to drop them in the chat, and yes, and Eli will get to them. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna mute everybody. Admit all, mute all. And if you have a question, just drop it in the chat. All right, let me unmute. Ask to unmute. Perfect. And let me allow you to here, make co-host. And you should be able to share your screen.
Awesome.
Oh, okay, guys. So let's dive in. I know some people are still taking a little bit of time, but let's dive in anyway. Guys, I want to introduce to you Eli, even though I've already kind of told you guys he's going to be on here. It doesn't really need an introduction, but Eli is an amazing person in the industry. He's definitely an industry leader. He was Tony Robbins' #1 sales guy, has done over 9 figures in sales. It's fucking incredible. That's 9 figures. That's a lot of sales, a lot of deals. So Eli has been kind enough to jump on here, share his time with us. And what I kind of asked for Eli to touch on is tonality. I think Eli's got some advanced strategies I think he'll touch on as well, but I think kind of the main focus for today is going to be tonality. So I'm kind of just gonna give the stage to him, and then at the end, I also want to have I'm gonna ask him a few questions, more like a podcast style thing. So Eli, let me pin you here and let's rock and roll. I love the mustache, by the way.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, I'll kick this off, guys. You know, as Dylan said, I worked with Tony Robbins for a long time. I was an actor, and then, you know, so I had familiarity with scripts and communication and body language and all this stuff. And I tell you this, when I started taking on-camera classes, I'm sure you've all had the experience of hearing your voice on the phone for the first time, and you're like, oh, I sound like shit. And then you see yourself on video the first time, you're like, man, I look like an idiot. With on-camera classes, they give you scripts where you see it for the first time. They give it to you. You need to scoop up a piece of dialogue, like the line of the script, as you're engaging with somebody, and they have a camera on your face like this, so they can see all the uncertainty in your eyes, and you're looking at content you've never seen before. So the ability to capture information that you're seeing in another person, to read the script, and be able to communicate it how you want to so that it lands and still maintain connection was really, really useful. And then once I ended up working for Tony, very long story short, after a year, I was the top salesperson. Tony's son wanted to join the company as a speaker. Tony said to his son, well, you need to live around the top guy. He's going to be hungry. And so before I knew it, I was living with Tony's son, and Tony's brother-in-law, Scott Humphrey, moved in with us. So before I knew it, I was living with Tony's son and brother-in-law. And whenever I had questions about sales, or I had this objection or whatever, I'd be like, hey, Jared, hey, Scott, can you ask Tony this? And eventually Tony just started to personally mentor me and let me ask him like a bajillion stupid questions that he didn't see as stupid. And instead of just giving me a tactical answer, he really broke down the psychology. And after a couple of years, I left Tony's company, came back. And in 2010, Tony and I really started to develop a really great relationship. And he personally mentored me hardcore for a year. In that year, I had been really sick. I worked half the week for Tony, and I laid in bed or a hospital bed the other half the week. So I worked less than half as much as everybody else, had personal challenges, but I broke every sales record in the company while working half as much. And in that time, Tony gave me a lot of distinctions that are going to be the bulk of this training. But it was specifically an intervention that I saw Tony do. 2010, we had a company meeting, and he broke down the stuff that I've never seen him teach anywhere on postures, framing, some NLP stuff. And we're going to get into that towards the end. But I asked him some questions about how he saw influence, and what he saw was the process of what he does from the front of the room, what he does when he engages somebody one-on-one in doing those interventions. And he said something to me that was so powerful. It shifted the way that I saw sales, saw influence, saw communication forever. And there was this one statement that he said. Fortunately, when he did, I recorded it, I transcribed it, and I would read this one statement before all my presentations, before all my sales calls. I would just read this one thing, and it really associated me to what we were actually doing on these calls and these presentations with these human beings that are strangers, as we touch, move, and inspire them to action for their reasons. It was so powerful. I ingrained this one thing over and over again. And this one statement that he said not only changed the way that I sold, it allowed me to enroll probably an extra 40,000 high ticket people over the next few years and put millions of dollars in my pocket because of this one distinction. Would you like me to share with you exactly what he said? Would you like me to share? Better put some ones in the chat. Otherwise, I don't need to tell you. I don't need to tell you what he said. That's called a takeaway, by the way. And so I'm going to break down some things that I'm doing. My tonality, my pausing, my framing. We're going to get into some embedded commands, open loops, some little stuff. We have time here at the end, but I'll just give it to you what Tony said to me. He said, to influence somebody, we must be connected to that person. We must not only understand them intellectually, because you can understand them and you can judge them. By the way, you can never influence somebody if they feel judged by you. You must connect to them, their needs, their wants, their desires, their fears. You got to step into their world without buying into their story. That's a unique balance, to step into somebody's world and appreciate, but not buy into their limitation. If you buy into their limitation, you've added no value to their life. The added value of representing me and our partnership with these potential clients and customers is that we don't buy their fucking limitation. He says, I don't buy the limitation of how hard they can clap, how much they can jump, how intense they can feel or what they can achieve. And because I don't buy into those limitations, and because they feel that I care, and because I'm willing to go there first, I can influence them. And I was like, that's it. That's it right there. And so I just made that such a part of my psyche. And I got really deep into NLP because I had all the scripts and I had gone through so much sales training. I was just obsessed, not just because I wanted to make money, but part of it was my mission. And I had an experience when I went to Tony Robbins' event. Initially, I had no money. I signed up. I didn't have like enough money for my rent. It was either sign up for Tony Robbins' event or pay my rent. And I signed up for the event. Because I had that experience of doing something that was impossible for me, but I still did it anyway, I had the internal congruency to challenge my prospects to get out of their own comfort zone and invest heavily in themselves, even though they didn't have money. Because I had an experience that I embodied and that I owned, I could speak congruently about challenging people to do the thing that they didn't want to do because I did it myself. That's leadership. And so as I got really good, Tony started to mentor me on some of the different aspects of NLP. And so my idea, I was going to give you my favorite reframes. And I do have an entire presentation here that I want to break down some of the classic reframes that you'll see and how we can really pull apart the structure of belief. If somebody might say to you, well, I don't have money, so that means I can't invest. Somebody else says, I don't have money, so that means I need to put it on a credit card. So there's a different meaning. And I want to show you basically the idea, the framework, some of the strategies to be a builder of belief and a destroyer of belief and a molder of meaning. A key tenet in NLP is really understanding that human beings are meaning-making machines. And so the meaning they have attached to you, to themselves, to what other people think, the meaning of your offer, what it means to them emotionally, psychologically, what it means to them and how they're perceived by others. There's these entities on that call. And so we want to create meaning for these people and shift the meaning that they have around themselves, around possibility, around money, around time that has them stuck and locked in a box. But when Dylan said that he wanted me to go into tonality, about an hour ago, I just started typing up a document that I'll actually add some of this to my course. Some of it's gained from things I learned from Tony, of course. I have a really good friend that teaches high ticket sales as well, named Cole Gordon. Some of you guys know who he is. I've been in the sales game for a long time, but I spent about 250 grand last year on different sales trainings and influence and speaking trainings. Cole spent like 600 grand. We buy a lot of courses together and we just obsess. This is like all I do. And so this is our thing. And so I took some concepts. I just started writing things down, things from me, things from Tony, things from Cole, things from Robert Cialdini. And I put together kind of an understanding of tonality, the way that I see it. So we're going to crank through some concepts that I just poured out of my brain the last hour. And then we're going to get into the more tactical stuff of how you actually do it. And so we're going to fly right through this. If that sounds good with everybody, give me like a 2 or 3 or give me something in the chat just so I know that you guys are here and you're ready to rock and roll. Cool? Awesome. So let's get right into this. And literally, this is not going to be fancy. Even my slides are not too sexy, but this is stuff that I just cranked out just now. And so, and yes, I'll give you the document when we're done, but I am just going to crank through this. And so when Dylan said tonality, I'm going to share with you some things that I'm doing even right now with my tonality. And so you'll begin to notice, by the way, I'm telling you, we're going to break down the framework of what we really understand. And this is one of my slides, but I just want to give it to you right now because I want you to conceptualize not only what I'm going to teach you intellectually, but conceptualize it in an experience where you get to see the pauses, the changes in my tonates, and my tonality. And sometimes even when I act like I'm thinking about what I'm going to say to make it seem more authentic, I know exactly what I'm going to say, but I'm changing the cadence and I'm beginning to pull you in by changing some elements that add this feeling of it's being more authentic. But it's only because I've trained it. And just like when you see a professional actor, like they know the script and you only have this one conversation that you need to have with people. You don't need to memorize like a 90-minute movie, a 20-page dialogue. You need to be able to read the people and know that they have 3 or 5 challenges that you know with absolute certainty that your offer can solve. And so we want to be able to not only read our script, but read the person and making sure that we're in alignment, that we're pacing and leading and connecting and softening and challenging and there's going to be variance in the tonality that really allows people to unconsciously perceive you as a warm, caring authority. And so you're going to get an experience of that. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And so we're going to go a bit over pacing. Oh, this is the thing, and it is on a slide, but I want to give this to you really quick. Let me ask you this and put this in the chat. I know it is a super obvious answer, but just bear with me and give me the answer. Why do people buy? Do they buy on logic or emotion? Put it in the chat. Emotion, energy, and motion. So even before we get into the training that you're going to see, we're going to break down the structure of emotion. We're going to get into, like, really, if we had to dissect emotion, we're going to see that there are 3 general patterns or recipes to cook up the right emotional state, what I call a buying state. And you've all had times where you needed to buy something and you went to the store and you didn't buy because you didn't feel like buying. Maybe there was a bad salesperson. Maybe something didn't have your attention. Maybe you weren't fully associated. You've had other times where you went to a store and you weren't going to buy something, but you still bought something. You've all bought things that you couldn't afford. People buy houses and cars and invest in things they can't afford every day. And so that doesn't stop anybody from buying. So don't have a limiting belief because somebody is a little bit financially challenged that they still can't do it. If there's enough certainty and belief and emotion, energy and motion that we can create by changing their patterns and focus, and the primary tool that we use to shift somebody's focus is going to be questions. And you guys already know that. But also there's some things like that you're seeing me do where I might emphasize a word where I get you to really associate to this thing and stop and begin to pay attention, to really focus and take these ideas inside so that you feel them at different level. So these are embedded commands, and I'm going to show you the structure of that. But what am I doing? I'm shifting your focus. So questions are really, really powerful. Those are the primary tool. We also want to understand a little bit about elicitation, to elicit information without asking questions. We call this the why without the why. And you've heard this before in sales. We want to get to their what's their why, but too many why questions can feel like an interrogation. So we can elicit sensitive information without asking questions through a few techniques I'll get to when we go through the presentation that are really, really powerful, that get people opening up in ways they usually don't. So we're going to go through that. So tonality, advanced tactics. Oh, I keep forgetting this because the slide's not there. So Tony teaches something called the triad. Who here is familiar with Tony Robbins? Give me like a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with him a little bit. Dylan, have you been to a UPW Tony Robbins event? Anybody seen that movie, I'm Not Your Guru on Netflix? Anybody ever seen any of that? You know, so Tony does these events. It'll be like 20,000 people now. I spoke at the first virtual event that Tony did. We had 24,000 people there, and I did the pitch for Business Mastery. I'll add this insight here. For all of Tony's events, there's a through line. And we are framing and shifting people's beliefs, perceptions, changing the way they make decisions to put them in this buying pocket. And the through line of all Tony's events is usually committing to mastery. Don't be a dabbler. Those people, they start businesses, doesn't work out, then they start another business, they go e-com, they jump around. These are dabblers. Don't be a dabbler. It's pathetic. And then there's stressors. There's people that get in something and they stress out because they hit a plateau. Don't be a stressor. There is a better path. You hit that plateau, you find somebody that's been there before, find somebody who's a mentor, they show you a couple tweaks, and that is the path to mastery. Let me know if you're committed to mastery. And everybody says they're committed to mastery. People say that they're committed to mastery like 1,000 times, and then they sell you Mastery University after you've said that you're committed to mastery like 1,000 times. The through line at the event that I spoke at, and I only bring this up because it's relevant to where all of you are selling today. And by the way, when I came back to work for Tony Bitt's company, we were in the heat of the recession, 2008, 2009, 2010, and our company dominated. We just took over because we really framed people differently. And when I spoke at the virtual event, the first one that Tony did, my sales pitch did $12.7 million in an hour. Not because of me, it's because Tony has an audience and all of that. Obviously, a monkey could have sold the majority of that because Tony's got a really amazing audience, but the context. And so this relates to a lot of you guys with the marketing, the through line, all of it, and it relates to what's happening in the world. And so the through line of that event was this: create your own economy. So there's a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. People losing their jobs. We got COVID. Nobody can lose their house. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I'm attaching massive amounts of uncertainty to what people are currently doing. The only way that you can secure your family's future, to have a life on your terms, is to create your own economy. So we got people to buy into the belief that they needed to create their own economy. So we have the process and the product. People were committed to create their own economy. And then I taught the 7 forces of business mastery. The best way, since you guys are committed to create your own economy, the best way to do that we've done for years, is these 7 forces. We call them business mastery. So people were committed to the process, and then we committed them to the product. So I want you to understand right now, as it relates to the recession that is coming for a lot of people, there's massive uncertainty. And so we can use and we can leverage the uncertainty that people have. And I can give you some, I'll give you at the end, I'll give you some things that I say on the calls that will change the context of your calls and immediately help all of you close more effectively. But before I even get into that, I want you to understand there's context and there's content. Context and content. Give me a 1 if you understand that, a 2 if you don't. Awesome. So most of you understand it. I'll give you this. When I would do my Tony Robbins presentations, I was selling salespeople who didn't want to be sold, and they knew I was there to sell something. So most people would go in and do these events, and the context was off. And by the way, I'm going to bring this up really, really quick. Docs, and I'm going to just share this with you. So this isn't about me. I don't want to kind of pump myself up too much here with any of this stuff, but I think this will make it relevant, because what I'm going to say are a couple of things that are a little bit outside the box. This is an old presentation. I'm not going to go really deep into this. There's me on stage with Tony and all of that. This was one of my last months at Tony Robbins Company. Can you guys see my screen? Give me a 1 if you can. If you guys can see this. Awesome. I'm seeing some 1s. So this is my last months at Tony Robbins Company. We already had a sales agency at the time, so I was working half as much as everybody else. I want you to get this. I'm working half as much, talking to half as many people. I have 680 high ticket sales the last month, and the best next person has like less than 200. I have 3.5 times the sales as the next guy, talking to half as many people. You guys see that? Give me a thumbs up if you guys said that. We had the same script, saying the same words to the same prospect, selling the same product, the same everything, the same price, everything. And so these little nuances are what shifted everything for me. But a big part of it was my own belief, my own triad, as we're going to get into, my own patterns of focus, my patterns of meaning, and my own physiology, that I was able to create unconscious influence on my prospects. But also, going back into this, I created a different context. And so when I do presentations now, like I got one coming up next month with Hermosi, I was telling Dylan about. When I go up there, I'm doing a pre-pitch for an event. I'm going to teach the content, but I'm going to get people really associated to everything I'm going to teach you here today is about helping you get results faster. I want you to get results faster so you can enjoy it longer. Like people talk about that dude, Colonel Sanders. They're like, yeah, he tried for years, and at 65, he became a millionaire, but yeah, he died like 2 years later. I want you to enjoy it faster, get it sooner so you can enjoy it longer. And a lot of people put things off, and then they don't get to enjoy it. So everything is about getting you to do things faster. So I'm starting to create a context that takes away, I got to think about it. I'm creating a frame of the call, of the conversation, that people buy into, that put them in more of a buying state. So when they see my offer, it has a different meaning that they bought into. So I'm going to break down some of what that looks like. Are you guys understanding what I'm saying? Yep. And I'll pull some of you guys out and role play some of this here at the end. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. Boom. All right. So the triad though is just a process that I'm going to break down through the presentation on creating focus, changing meaning, and shifting somebody's physiology. We can't get people jumping up and down like most people do at Tony Robbins events, but shifting focus by taking people through the right syntax with the right questions and elicitation and reframing the meaning, especially before the offer, is going to be key. So tonality, we're going to go over some advanced tactics, pacing, pausing, labeling. If you guys are getting something out of this, if you guys can notice that I'm doing a few things differently than what you might be accustomed to, just with my tonality right now, give me a 1 in the chat. I know you've done it before, but I want to make sure you're here. Give me another 1 in the chat, and that'll be really helpful. Awesome. That's really helpful, guys. It helps me out a lot. So I'm just letting you know, I just labeled you helpful. I just labeled you helpful. So even on my calls, when somebody tells me something, remember this principle, just like dogs in behaviorism, what gets rewarded gets repeated, like a dog getting a bone. And people, Sigmund Freud said this, the strongest force inside the human psyche is to remain consistent with your current identity and how you see yourself. So part of what we're doing here is we're creating identities. When I would do my Tony Robbins talks, I would say, hey, by the fact that you're here, it means that you're an action taker. It means that you're a decision maker. It means you're the type of people who are willing to make short-term sacrifices so you can get long-term gains. I'm labeling them a buyer. They're a decision maker. They're an action taker. And once people have a positive label through my perception, because they see me as an authority, like if Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone, somebody you really respect said, wow, you're an action taker. I love that about you. If you respect the person, you're going to want to hold on to that identity. So labeling is something I do, and I just labeled you all helpful. And when you do this correctly, it'll make people want to help you more because they don't want to let go of the identity. Are you guys getting me a little bit? So it's going to be very nuanced things, but these are the things that allowed me to sell everybody else. I'll sell everybody else with the same script. So pausing, going to be obvious. I'll bring up here at the end when I pull you guys out. Interrupting. Who here thinks that it's good to interrupt people on your sales calls? Give me a 1 if yes, 2 if no. The answer is yes, but with a caveat. In your personal life or on your sales calls, if you interrupt somebody and you say something about yourself or a different subject, that's rude. But if I interrupt you and I make it about something you just said, that's called active listening and showing unconscious leadership. Oh, hold on there, John. When you said that you were wasn't kind of how you like, how did you mean by that? So that's a probing question, a clarification question. So we're going to go deeper and change the pace and the cadence. Because sometimes you'll have people hop on the call and they're really excited. And you think that excited energy means they're going to buy. Usually it doesn't. They're controlling the energy. So I'll interrupt. Oh, okay. When you said something, I think you said something really like that. That was amazing. I don't know if you know how amazing that is. What I think I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, and because I'm slowing them down, I'm controlling the pace, I'm controlling the energy, I'm controlling their focus, and I'm beginning to have a deeper level conversation. So tactical interrupting, making it about them or something they said, and beginning to have a deeper than surface level conversation is going to be key. And by the way, we teach there's 3 levels to the conversation. There's surface level. Somebody says they want to make more money. Then there's action level. What would having more money allow them to do? And then there's identity level, or what we call transformation level. What would this thing, money, who would that allow them to be for their family? So if you don't do it with the right tonality, it's going to come off cheesy. So we're going to role play that a little bit at the end and give you guys some tactical examples of what that sounds and more importantly feels like. Asserting versus pulling back energy, posturing. I'm going to go deeper into posturing. Everybody put the word posture. This is one of those things. When Tony taught me this, he taught it to me and then he flew me and a couple guys out to Vegas and we did like fight training with the trainer of the Navy SEALs. We shot machine guns all day. We just had a boys' day. And Tony wanted me just like really to understand this concept of posturing. I'm going to give it to you as many examples as possible, but this alone doubled my sales almost overnight. Postures is huge. And so you're all going to get an experience of it. And I've got that later on in the course. Referential index and how to use it. Does anybody know what referential index, what that means? Give me like a 3 in the chat if you do, 4 if you don't. Awesome. So really quick, because I'm going to give you some examples of it below, but just for now, I want you to understand in every conversation, there are 3 entities. There's you, there's me, and there's other people. And so sometimes, and Dylan, I think you even saw this Facebook post that I did. I might say something really direct to somebody that could be challenging. But if I say, hey, you need to get your shit together, that's me making a direct statement from me to you, and that can come off combative. Or I could say, wow, I'll never forget, first time I had a conversation with Tony, I was kind of struggling. I was kind of in the same spot you were. But he looked at me and he had like this booming voice and he just looked at me right in the eyes and he said, hey, you need to get your shit together. If you don't get your fucking shit together, your life's going to be ruined. And part of me was a little upset that he said that to me, but I knew that he said this because he really cared. So now I'm giving you the direct statement and you have to accept it because it's something that they said to me, but I'm directly saying it to you. So we're going to play with this a little bit. Do you understand that at the basic level? Yes, give me a thumbs up if so. Awesome. So there's times that you want to use this effectively, and I'll give you some examples of those. Hacking attention, priming statements. We'll get into that a little bit, and you're going to see me do it. Attack and confess. I'll give you an example of that. Don't let me forget. It's something I used to do a lot. It relates to the entities, kind of like I just shared with you, the referential index. But this alone also put a lot of money in my pocket. Certainty, there's 3 types, and connection, there's 3 types. And so I'm just going to give you the 3 types of certainty really quick. I have them labeled down below, but we're going to get into it. Is certainty important in your sales calls? Yes or no? 100%. So to have a rock solid belief system, a belief by definition is a feeling of absolute certainty that you have about something. The way that I teach this, and I've got slides on this, but I'm not going to pull them up. I just really quick want to demonstrate this for you and want to give you like a visual example. So right now, make sure you're paying attention to me because I'm just going to do this with my hands. Imagine that in this hand right here is like the earth. And imagine that this is the moon. So this is a physics question, so pay attention. If the earth gets bigger, what happens to the moon? Does it go further or closer? Put it in the chat. It's a physics question. If the earth gets bigger, what happens to the moon? It gets closer because the gravitational pull of the earth, increased mass, draws things to it. But if the earth were to shrink, what would happen to the moon? It would be repulsed. Now, let's not say it's the earth and the moon. Let's say it's you and your prospect. You're having a conversation for 30 minutes. You've done a discovery, and then they give you an objection. And you've been certain, you've been clear, you've been concerned, you've been empathetic, they're into their problem, and now they've given you a smokescreen objection. I can give you, and when I started doing sales training and we had a sales agency, I would tell people exactly what the freak to say. And they'd say, hey, Eli, I got that objection. I said what you told me to say, and it didn't work. And I'd say, let me listen to that sales call. And I'd listen to it, and I'd say, hey, you said my words, but you did not say what I said. Because when you said the objection handler, you said it with uncertainty in your voice. I can hear your beliefs. You had a meaning. You started focusing on, did I just waste 30 minutes? Am I going to pay my rent? You made it mean that they're a bad prospect. You make it mean that they're disqualified. You made it mean that the world is punishing you. You make it mean that you suck. You make it mean that the world sucks, that you shouldn't be in sales. You've created a disempowering meaning. So we want to be a molder of meaning, and we want to create the meaning. Human beings are meaning-making machines. So we have to take control of the meaning that we label to things that are happening inside of our life. And we need to know that everything's working for us. And so when you have that positive meaning and you can reframe it for yourself immediately, you can then proceed through the objection handling and do that for, not to, your prospect. So we are a molder of meaning. And so what happens is when you keep frame and you have that certain uncertainty, they're in an uncertain spot, but you hold that frame and you have resolve and you expand. In those moments, they can't help but to draw into you. And so there's three levels of certainty. Certainty is key. The first level of certainty, let's just call it this, uncertainty. Well, do you think possibly you might kind of sort of do you think, I mean, do you want to kind of do the thing? Or there's absolute certainty, like shooting fire cannons out of your butt. Like, this is the best fucking thing in the world. Boom. Like, you got to do this. That is way better, but that is not the highest level of certainty. If level 1 is uncertain, level 2 is shooting fire cannons out of your butt. Level 3 is resolve. Somebody's like, well, I can't afford it. Not a problem at all. Like, if you think of somebody, say like a Tony Robbins, think of somebody that you think is just like amazing at what they do. They're just like, of course, like it's no big deal. They've got this oak tree, granddaddy, BDE energy where it's truly not a big deal. Resolve. It's like people have all these scripts and they might go through Jeremy Miner stuff, who's a really good friend of mine, and they're like, not a problem. And they say it's not a problem, but in their mind, you can feel that they really think it's a problem. They're using some technique, but they don't have the energy of resolve, where it's like whatever there's only like 3 or 5. We train, there's like 15 situations, but really there's like maybe 5, 6 situations that your prospect's going to be in around time, money, pray to Jesus, whatever it is. They're all fear-based. It all comes from the same thing. And even if they're being really, really resistant and they're just asking you for the price, remember this quote from Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was a savage. She said, all communication is a loving response or a cry for help. And if they are not giving you a loving response, they're challenging you, well, that's a cry for help. And so we want to treat it as such. Don't use it as something to take away your certainty. Know that these people are in pain. They might have been on a bunch of shitty sales calls. They might have a challenge. They might really be pressed for time. And so being in resolve and you connecting and opening the call in a way that puts them at ease by having a conversation, not, hey, I'm going to interrogate you and see, at the end of the call, if we can do this, I'm going to let you know, but we're not taking maybes. It just is like, you're going to do it. Yes or no. It's like, I'm not taking maybes. Like, here's how it is. When we do that, they're not going to open up. So how we frame, not just in what we say, but in our energy is going to be absolutely key. So there's 3 levels of certainty that you got to be able to make sure that you're at the highest level. And it's like, of course, resolve. This is no big deal. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to feel it, to feel into it. It's that energy. Again, Earth, Moon, people will be drawn into you when you have that calm resolve. It's key. 3 levels of connection. I didn't go into this, so I'm just going to give them to you really quick. I believe you need to have these 3 levels of connection in this order, in this syntax. I think you need to be connected to like your purpose, like a purpose and a reason that's bigger than yourself. And it can't be just to make money. It can't be number one. When I was the top salesperson for Tony, of course I wanted to make money. Of course I wanted to be the top salesperson. Of course I wanted to get acknowledged by Tony Robbins. This guy's like my hero. I looked up to him so much. But I went to Tony's event. I had an experience that shifted a lot of things in my life when I was like really going through a dark time. And I sold from a place of mission. Like my mission was like, I had gone through some things and this helped me get out of it. And my mission, like I want to expose as many people as possible to the distinctions inside of this man, inside of this event, So I was on a mission to get people to the event for their reasons, not for mine. So I was like, I can change the world if I expose enough people to this program. And I really believe that. And so one, I was connected to a vision bigger than myself, connected to something. And when you meet somebody that has, like, they're going places, they're not just like micromanaging their life, they're doing the things, but it's connected to a process bigger than themselves. That's key. So I was connected to my purpose, my vision. I was connected to myself, my identity, who I am. And then from there, I was connected to the other person. And so there's a lot of talk about rapport. I think rapport is really powerful. Rapport is powerful. But you have a lot of weak ass salespeople. They have no vision for their life. They're not connected to themselves. And then they try to connect with the prospect. When you try to connect to the prospect, but you're not connected to yourself, or you don't have anything going on for you, you come off needy and weak. People are trying to get rapport through commonality, asking questions about dogs and cats and baseball teams and things like that. Oh, I see you that you like this. Me too. They're not connected to themselves and their vision. And you can feel it. If you go to a networking event, you go on a date, it's like somebody's trying to get something from you. But when you have a vision and a mission in your life and you're connecting, you fucking own yourself, you become attractive. And now when you genuinely, sincerely ask somebody a question about themselves, it comes off very different, but we can't forget the syntax. Does it make sense? Awesome. And so 4 keys to influence. I'm going to crank through these and then we're going to go through the actual training. 4 keys to influence that must be in you before the sales call. 1, we hammered pretty good. I'm going to go through these relatively quick so we can go through this document. 1 is belief. You know, a belief about yourself, belief about these people, a positive belief about these people, and not a negative belief, not a judgmental belief. And so you have to have a belief, like this feeling of absolute certainty as to why you're there and what you're doing. It's got to be key. Again, when I would go do these presentations, I would speak to a room of sometimes 200 salespeople, like car lot people that knew I was there to sell. Again, when 2 people meet, just like the Earth and the Moon example, when 2 people meet, the person that is more certain, has more resolve, will eventually influence the other person. I would speak to a room of 200 people, and I could tell by the looks on their face, they had a belief in them that was like, I don't need to hear what this person has to say. This person's going to try to sell me something, and I'm not going to buy. That was their belief. You could see it. You could feel it on their face. And it used to be when I first started, I was like, well, screw those people. They don't want my thing. But then I was like, you know what? These people need my help the most. They're so resistant. And so they gave me the energy of, I don't need to hear what you have to say. My belief was like, wow, this person really needs to hear what I have to say. And this person really needs my help. To be playful, to be warm, to be certain, to crack that exterior a little bit. But I knew that if I could be playful and warm and certain and connect to something beyond the mask, beyond the surface that they were putting out there, I could have a deeper level of conversation and move these people to action for their reasons. So belief about them, about yourself, about why you're there, like conditioning that belief over and over and over again is absolutely key. I have this later in the document when I want to give you this right now. Would anybody consider yourself a Tony Robbins fan? Put a 5 in the chat if you consider yourself a Tony Robbins fan or you like the guy. So my opinion, and I just want you to embody this because I think Tony Robbins is the GOAT. Like this dude, man, this guy is just like Michael Jordan, Barack, like he's coached 6 American presidents. Michael Jordan lost his first 3 championships, got coached by Tony, did pretty good after that. I mean, like all these people, Tony Robbins is freaking amazing. And this dude does not take any days off for like 40 some years. He's just been hustling. But here's the thing. Tony does these events, 10,000 people, 20,000 people. Do you think everybody there likes the event? Do you think everybody gets a result? Fuck no. 90% of those people are not going to do shit with their life. Some people go to those events, and yes, you walk on fire the first day, you do a fire walk. Some people get burned. Tony's saying the word fuck every 2 seconds. The room's really cold. A lot of people are really upset, and they want their money back. They're mad at me. They're at the customer service booth on day 2. You can come, and you can get your money back. It's supposed to be a no questions asked money back return. Money back on the spot. However, There was this crazy dude on day 2 that didn't make any money for this, but was at the customer service booth. And as people came up, I would ask them questions. Didn't mean anything to me financially, but I would ask them questions about why they actually came. And I would get them reassociated to why they were there. And a lot of people, I turned them around. I got them to go back in the event and it completely changed their life. But a lot of people, I couldn't turn them around. They were like, fuck this. This is a cult. You suck. I hate this. My wife got burned. You're fucking assholes. You are going to have prospects for whatever reason. And you guys probably don't sell for Tony Robbins. The guy that you sell for probably has less client testimonials and results than Tony Robbins. But even Tony Robbins has negative people. People don't get a result. People don't like it. And they get upset. What happened though, is despite that, I couldn't let it affect or infect my belief system. So you might have prospects mad or angry or people not getting results. You cannot let that kill your certainty, because you'll pull that uncertainty into your next call and you will lose the sale, not because of your script or your offer, because you weren't certain enough to hold frame, to hold people to a higher standard, because you got infected by, well, it's not perfect. Nobody's offer is perfect. Nobody has the perfect thing. It's up to you every single day to condition your mind to be absolutely certain in yourself and what's possible, to know what's possible for people. Like, have a morning formula where you have testimonials, where you have client wins, where you have screenshots of people saying, hey, this changed my life, to reassociate yourself to the fact that what you have can help people. So you've got to be able to build that like a muscle over and over again. So the number one thing you have before you talk to anybody is your belief system. The second thing that I made sure was always really, really rock solid was this. It was my physiology. So a big part of your emotions, how you feel, like right now, you can hear there's a resonance in my voice. I'm not speaking here monotone like I am right here. I'm speaking with all of my being. And it makes me come across like I can project my energy, and I can do it really strong, or I can intentionally kind of hold back a little bit. But there's a resonance there where I'm communicating with my body. So being in a good physiology, being hydrated, going for a walk in the morning, your emotions come from your body, not your mind. And the body affects the mind more than the mind affects the body. I know there's a lot of mindset stuff out there, but the body affects the mind more than the mind affects the body. So the mind is really, really powerful, but the way the neurology work, it's a bottom up phenomenon. So going for a walk, getting movement, getting emotion, energy in your body will be the reservoir that you carry your day, your calls through, that get you to have the certainty to hold frame. So your physiology has to be on point. Breathing deep. A lot of you sit all day, moving around a little bit to make sure you're not all stuck and contracted. So number 2 is always physiology. Most, even speakers, when I'm speaking on stage with other speakers, they kind of plant. I prowl. And so there's like a bigness. And so movement, being like a larger than life persona, feeling that in your body is going to change the presence and the way that you connect, and it's going to change your tonality. So 1, belief; 2, physiology; 3 is outcome. I have an outcome. Leaders, Napoleon Hill called it definiteness of purpose. I have an outcome to my life. I have an outcome to the call. Leaders always are definite in the purpose. So you might even start the call off talking about what the outcome is, but not just to have words on a script, have a real outcome. And of course, the outcome that you have is to get people to enroll if it's best for them. But I put this later on, and I want to give you this bit right now. When I really started to dominate the way that I sold, I realized this. Of course, my outcome was to get somebody to buy. But if I come off with the outcome of just trying to get people to buy, if that's my only intention, I have commission breath, and people feel that I'm trying to push them to a sale. I thought to myself one day, what precedes, what needs to happen before people take action? Before any action a human makes or doesn't make in their life, there are always certain thoughts and feelings and even beliefs. So my target inside of the discovery wasn't just to talk about taking action. I realized there were certain thoughts and feelings, and I got really clear. I was like, if they're thinking this about me, about themselves, about the offer, about money, if they're thinking this and they're feeling this, then they're more likely to take action. But if they're thinking this and they're thinking this, well, that's when I get objections. So I got really clear on the thoughts and feelings that led people to buying. And I got really clear on the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs that people had that kept them from buying. And once I could hear those limiting buying beliefs, I would reframe them in the discovery. And I'm going to talk about how we do that here as we go through the document. So there's belief, physiology, outcome, and then the fourth thing was rapport. Again, these are all things that I do before the call. Rapport is something I do before the call. Like, what do I like about this person? What do I respect about this person? What do I love about this person? Man, it looks like they've been struggling for a long time, but they still keep on going. And this is something I do with labeling too. I want to give you this bit right here. So somebody might hop on a call and say they tried like Joe's offer and Jim's offer, and they're still struggling and nothing's worked. When they say that, a lot of you think that's a bad thing. How I'd reframe it is this: a label. I talked about labeling with their identity. Somebody says, yeah, I tried this fucking program, didn't work. This program didn't work. I've tried everything, nothing works. Man, John, it sounds like you've gone through a lot, but you're the kind of person who just doesn't give up. Like, you're always finding a way to keep moving despite all those challenges. Have you always been that way? Or is that just a way you've been over time? Man, I've always been that way. He's creating the identity for himself that he always moves forward no matter what. He's always been that way. Do you guys understand that label a little bit? We took a negative and we switched it. Give me a thumbs up if you guys get that. You might want to watch that a couple times. That's really powerful. So boom. All right, so let's crank through this before we take forever this. 3 mechanisms of social conditioning. And yes, I'll give this that dictate receptiveness. And I got this from Cialdini. Cole and I talked about this. Robert Cialdini wrote the book Influence. Highly recommend that. This is from that book and some of his talks. It kind of helped me understand not just the tonality and how we need to shift people, but how we can shift their perceptions, which puts them in the right state. So our brains are constantly bombarded with information. Our brains are lazy, so it doesn't want to think or make complex decisions. So it does 3 things. It generalizes, distorts, and deletes information to file away as something that we already know. And so whatever it is, it's your offer, it's you, they're categorizing you as like other salespeople, whatever. And so we want to be able to hack that. The brain will, however, prioritize and associate information that is, number 1, new. So if you and I are having a great conversation right now, and then there's a ding on your phone, something new, it's hard for your brain not to want to pay attention to the new thing. That's why there's this thing called the news, this new thing. Hey, here's something you might not know. Hey, I just found out about this new thing. So part of the reason that we want to have some variance in our tonality is that it'll change the receptiveness of what we're saying because it's moving. It's dynamic, not monotone. And so new things, and I just taught a training today on re-offers. Even when you make a re-pitch or a re-offer to people that didn't buy, a lot of your sales will come on follow-up. Even if you close 50% of your calls, 50% that don't close, you want to have a re-offer. So you'll follow up and you'll re-offer people the same thing, but you tell them, hey, we just created something new. We created new financial terms. We created something new that's going to allow you to get in for less and have more time to actually implement. Do you want the info? So we're re-engaging them with something new. You guys with me? So I got like a whole training on that. We're not going to get into all of that, but just know that novelty, manufacturer's focus, movement. If I'm talking about trends, here's how things are changing in the industry. Here's some patterns that we've seen the most successful people where they're really getting stuck, but also how they fixed it based on what's been changing and moving within our economy. Would you like to know? So talking about movement engages people also on a different level. Anything directly related to our basic human drives, some basic ones here: self-preservation, core values, love, rising in the social hierarchy or status, authority. So I want to give you this bit. I expanded on this one. Authority is absolutely key. So you might have seen Frank Kern talks about this. At the peak, there's celebrity and authority. Or if you have somebody like Tony Robbins or Dr. Oz, they're so influential because they're celebrities and authorities. So how do you hack this for yourself to be perceived as an authority without being a douche? hey, here's what I've done, and we've got all of this. Like, you should listen to me because of that. When I did my Tony Robbins talks, I did 3,400 talks on behalf of Tony. I would go to companies and they would give me an introduction. Eli has done this, and Eli has done this, and Eli's top whatever. After maybe 5 or 6 years, but maybe like 8 years, usually the owner of the company would butcher my introduction because I would have him read it, and you could tell he was reading it, and it just killed it. And so I just got right into my talk, and I had no introduction, speaking to a cold audience that did not want to hear what I have to say and did not want to be sold. But I had no introduction, but I knew right away, as soon as I begin speaking, they are going to know that I am somebody worth listening to based on my tonality. So there's 3 tonalities that I teach in my speaking. There's really 4, but I'm just going to give them to you really quick. Are you guys getting this? Are you still here? I know I've been talking for a long time, but if you guys are still here, give me like a 1 in the chat. And so there's 3 basic tonalities. 1, I want you to understand, is sage. And so as you listen to the cadence and the tonality of a CEO of a company, so there's a certain cadence. A great example is Morgan Freeman, Obi-Wan Kenobi. So there's a cadence: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there is a cadence into how the words are coming out of my mouth that sounds like, and it can flow a little bit like this, but the words are calm and clear and punctuated like a CEO. And when somebody communicates like a CEO, Dylan does it really well. So there's a warm, strong, firm voice that has a cadence to it. So that's sage voice. Again, Obi-Wan Kenobi, every Morgan Freeman character that he plays in a movie, that is like the ultimate sage wisdom voice. The other one that I'll hint at sometimes is warrior. And so it's like really, really strong. And I'll use this when I interject really, really quick. And I'll break this down in postures. So there's a physical posture, a tonality posture, and a mental posture for posture. So I'll get to that in a bit. But there's sage, there's warrior, and there's lover, when I'll slow it down just a little bit. And so this variance changes the way that people perceive you. And so the way that I'd speak right at the beginning, people knew that I was somebody worth listening to based on my volume, my articulation, my tonality, and my humor. And how I'd change things every once in a while, not being humorous to be like a clown, but having a genuine good time, like having fun. Because that's ultimate confidence. When you're actually enjoying yourself, you're not trying to get something, you're actually enjoying yourself. So I would communicate all of that within the first few minutes, and people were engaged. So I want to give you this little bit on authority, though. I think this is really powerful. And my buddy Chase Hughes, does anybody know Chris Voss? Give me like a 6 in the chat if you know Chris Voss. Chris Voss, amazing. He wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. Highly recommend it. However, he does admit that everything he teaches in that book, he teaches out of the 1974 FBI handbook. He didn't come up with any of it. One of my best friends, we run the sales for a gentleman named Chase Hughes. He's got a YouTube channel called The Behavior Panel. They break down people's behavior. Chase rewrote all of the protocols for the FBI, the CIA. He's the first one to successfully create a Manchurian candidate, which basically means you hypnotize somebody so deeply you can control them. And he would go to other governments, go to other countries and hypnotize people and get them to assassinate people without even knowing. That's like ninja level influence, where you hypnotize somebody and they kill somebody and they don't even know what they did. So like next level shit. And he's one of my best friends. And you know, there's a lot of this too that I asked him about. Why does hypnosis or sales or influence work for some, despite the script or training, more than others? Authority is absolutely key. And so even hypnotizing somebody, when somebody says, in a moment, what's going to happen is I'm going to do this, this, and this, and you might begin to feel a little bit sleepy, a little bit drowsy. That's totally fine. So not yet, but in a moment. So what am I doing? I'm pre-framing people, telling them what's going to happen. Not yet, but in a moment. So they feel more safe about what's going to happen. So I'm creating safety, not yet, but in a moment, here's what we're going to do. So now they have less uncertainty. So as they go through the process, they feel safe. But the biggest thing, and I want you to get, when you see people hypnotize people and they're like sleep, and they just tell somebody to do something and they do it, a lot of it's based on your perception of that person. You see them as an authority. So how they make eye contact, how they move, their own internal congruency shifts the other person's state on an unconscious level. You know, that's number two we're going to get into. But authority, you're perceived with authority based upon these 5 markers here really quick. One is how you move. And mind you, we're using authority to get people to do the things that we want. Basic example, if we were on the side of the street and we saw somebody hurt on the other side of the street, we'd like to think that we would all help that person. But based on social sciences and social studies, I can tell you the majority of the time, nobody goes to help the person that's hurt unless somebody starts moving that way first. If 20 people on this side of the street and nobody's moving, and then one person starts to move in that direction, do we at least notice the person? Yes. But if they're moving like this, hey, what should we do? All uncertain, we notice them, but we don't follow them. So how that person starts moving determines whether or not only we see them, pay attention to them, but also follow them based on how they move. Their appearance, I'm not going to go into it too much, but if somebody's dressed like a bum and they start going that way, you're not going to follow them based on the fact they look like a bum. Third is confidence. So again, that goes back to if they're moving in that direction, but they're like uncertain, like, hey guys, what should we do? Can you guys come with me? You're not going to follow them. So it's unconscious influence. The other is connection. They might be moving in that direction, but not connected. They might be looking at their phone or looking in the sky. If they're not connected, you're not going to follow them. And then the 5th is intent. So I could do an hour training just on this, but moving, having an appearance, tonality, and confidence. And confidence, just so you know, confidence isn't pumped up chest confidence. Confidence really, there's one word that really sums up the kind of confidence I'm talking about. It's safety. When you feel safe, you're confident. Confidence and safety. So when we want people to feel confident in the offer, they confide in the offer, they confide in you, we've allowed them to feel safe. And for you personally, you feel most confident when you feel free to authentically be yourself. When you feel safe, you feel more confident. So we want to make people feel safe. And if we can have that resolve, granddaddy, BDE energy that makes people feel heard, understood, but also safe as we challenge them, it's going to be a different experience. So to sum these up, as basically as possible, we can put these into 3 buckets. Certainty of the person communicating these ideas. That's what we need. The inner alignment, congruency of the person communicating the ideas. And then finally, other people's thoughts around the idea. This is social proof. Appeal to others, authorities, peers, mentors. So there's these 3 entities happening all the time in communication that change how people perceive you or receive your ideas on a level. So 1, it's your certainty. 2, it's your inner alignment around the ideas. And 3rd, it's shifting the external perceptions around other people's, around the idea that are in the prospects world, meaning their peer group. So we're working with those entities all the time. And I'm going to crank through this. I realize that we've gone an hour and I've not gotten to the bulk of it. And so I'm going to crank through the next document. I'm going to go through a little bit of this. I'm going to give it to you. It's really self-explanatory. And then we're going to get into some of the really cool stuff. I'm going to pull some of you guys out because this is probably like 3 hours of training. So I'm going to make it really, really tight. The more you can embody the above, the more you will be able to directly influence people on an unconscious level. So 1, I'm going to go deep into 1 and then just give you the others as homework. 1, the certainty of the person communicating the ideas. This is you. It's not important just to have down like what you say, but also to be skilled in how you're saying what you're saying. Master tonality through repetition and emphasis. So Dylan asked me about tonality. So put in the chat, and I know this will take you a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit as you do this, but write down your favorite sales question. Somebody give me your favorite sales question, put it in the chat. So it could be, and I'll give you one is, so why, or it could, I'll do like a longer one. Do you think this is something that actually can help you where you want to go. So do you think that this is something that actually can help you get where you want to go? Do you think that this is something that can actually help you get where you want to go? Do you think that you can actually do this? Do you think that you can actually do this? Do you think that you can actually do this? The emphasis of where I put the word, like the tonality, the marker, changes the sentence. So what were you hoping? Where were you hoping to go from here? So where were you hoping to go from here? Okay, so where were you hoping to go from here, as opposed to other people? Where were you hoping to go from here? So playing with it, playing with these words, playing with the tonality. So is this something you can actually see yourself doing over the next 3 months that are going to actually allow you to have these results? Emphasis on have these results. So even where you make the offer, even how you get them to focus on certain parts of what you say inside of the objection handling is going to allow them to connect deeper to that point. So it's a refinement. But for now, for every question that you have in your sales script, literally, like it's one freaking script. You don't have to memorize a new movie every 3 months like a Hollywood actor. Take every question and put it on a note card and say it 20 different ways, 20 different tonalities, 20 different emphasis. Like this is your income. You know, it's like by taking action here today. You know, like I would just, every single sentence that came out of my mouth, I would just focus on it over and over and over again. And sometimes I would say it with more empathy. Do you think this is something that I guess you can do to help you become more successful? Emphasis on you can do to become more successful. So breaking it up, having fun with it. And when I pull you guys out, I'll play with you guys on this a little bit, but I want you guys to get this bit. Master tonality through emphasis and where you put their focus. So there's a sound to belief. And I went over this earlier, uncertainty. And this is at the end, but I want to give it to you now. So there's three postures we're going to get to. I'm going to do that next because it's so powerful and I know we'll be limited on time. But you guys have probably heard this before. With your tonality, there's like an upward inflection, there's a neutral inflection, and there's a downward inflection. Does that make sense to you? Like, are you guys with me right now? Are you guys like, is this kind of making sense what I'm saying? Are you guys with me? Does this make sense what I'm saying? I mean, is it kind of clear? Does this make sense? I guess, is this something that you can actually see yourself doing? So downward. So it becomes like a command. You guys get that? Yeah. And a lot of people, when we're uncertain and we're overcoming objections, well, if I broke it up for you, would that help you? You know, well, I guess, is that something do you think that it can help you? So listen to your calls and you can see, I've got more explanation in this, like watch yourself too. When you're really uncertain, your eyebrows will flash. Okay. This means uncertainty. So if human beings have been around for say this amount of time, say like, let's just say 50,000 years, words and communication have been around for this amount of time. So we communicated without words far before, like we communicated without words far before we had it like advanced language. So like an alpha dog or a lion, you can tell the lion's a lion based on his resolve and his volume. There's something there that sends a message to the unconscious of somebody's nervous system that you're somebody worth listening to. And so when you're doing this stuff with your eyebrow flashing, when you're using an upper tonality, it sends a message of uncertainty that people feel, and you're getting a lot of resistance, not because of your offer or the questions or your discovery, but because of who you are and how you're coming across and how they perceive you. It makes them feel unsafe. We respond to authority. And maybe you've been in a bad neighborhood and you felt unsafe, and then you see a police car, you're like, whoo, you feel good. Like you feel like, whoo, like I'm glad, this person's here. Being an authority for somebody Like, I want you to know this isn't you controlling them. Like, being perceived as an authority is something you do to make people feel safe. So that's why you're doing it. Not so they respect you, though they will, not so that you can manipulate people, though you could. You know, it's about making people feel safe. And so when I ask, I can do this. Like, are you guys getting it? Are you guys getting this right now? I'm here. So it's a whole different energy when I'm communicating and I'm here and I'm telling you, like, here's exactly what you need to do to become absolutely more powerful in all of your communication. Well, hey guys, I'm going to tell you some things that I think you can do that can make you more powerful in all your communication. It's different. It's a different thing. Not only like consciously we get it, but people's nervous system is where it comes through. So resolve, of course, it's already done. This is no problem at all. Say and feel these in your body and feel the difference. Look at some of your own calls, look at your physiology, and a big part of this too, that you condition yourself. Number 2 is going to be your congruency. And I'm going to blast through this really quick. Depth of expression. So there's a weight to the words. A lot of you are reading your script and you're kind of throwing away the words, or you're talking really fast. But an authority, a CEO, every word means something. So there's a weight to the words. And okay, and I can hear you, John. I think that's beautiful. And I think you said something really powerful there. And I want to go a little bit deeper into it. When you said X, how exactly did you mean by that? Slowing them down, connecting, making them feel safe as we begin to challenge their beliefs and perspectives. So making this practical, your ideal avatar has 1 to 5 problems that constantly come up for them that keep them from buying right now. Time, money, uncertainty, other things. So there's just a handful. Know these problems inside and out. Know exactly how to identify, deconstruct, and show a clear solution for them to change them right now for their reasons. Whatever those issues are, whatever those problems are they have, make those problems your bitch. We solve these fucking problems for breakfast every single day. Like that, man, I love the fact that you're going through it. It's not good that you have that concern, but let me tell you, we eat these problems for breakfast. That problem's going to be your bitch. Like, just know that whatever this, like, those problems are your bitch. You know, it's like, and there's not that many of them. It's not just what you say, but you really need to believe their problems are your company's bitch. You just got to know it. You got to just feel it in your bones. Balls to the walls, conviction and certainty mixed with empathy, concern, appreciation, and understanding all at once. Like, I can appreciate that. And the fact that you've gone through that with that last offer, I think that's awful. And let me ask you this. And so we're empathetic, but firm, you know, warm. So postures do this. I'll model this for you. So really quick, because I want you guys to really get this bit. This literally doubled my sales overnight when I got this. There are 3 postures. And I'm going to tell you exactly how Tony taught them to me. And then where I really got it, like mind orgasm, is where I saw Tony do it on an old podcast. So I'm going to give you the exact thing. Like, this doubled my sales overnight. So if you're ready for this, put a 3 in the chat if you're ready to really understand how you can double your sales by shifting these postures on your calls. Are you guys ready for this? I see some 3s. All right. So this is going to be fire for you guys. So there's 3 postures that you speak from. Posture number 1 is superior, where I'm talking down. So Garrett J. White, who I love, very superior. Grant Cardone, Dan Locke, whatever there, really superior, talking down to people. And so you do need to have a bit of superior, but if you're only superior, and this is where I killed my competition. There were fucking savages I was selling against, and they were savages and they knew it. So when you talk down to somebody and you tell them what the fuck is up, the only people that will buy from you are people that are willing to admit that they're inferior to you. So when we talk down to somebody, we're leading them and we are that authority. And people that stay locked in that posture can be really powerful, but because they're talking down to people, they can't sell people more successful. When I started doing one-on-one coaching, 100% of my clients made way more. They made millions of dollars. I wasn't going to hop on a call with him and say, here's what the fuck's up, John. You're fucking this up. You're fucking this up. Here's what I do. Here's what you need to do. You know, I was like 30 years old selling guys that were 56 years old that were worth like $20 million. They're going to be like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you need to understand this right away. Two people cannot occupy the same posture at the same time. You start off your call. Here's how it's going to go. I'm going to ask you these questions. And at the end of the call, I'm not going to take maybe. It's a yes or a no. Is that good? They're not going to open up, or they're going to start saying, just tell me the price. That's not how we do it. And you start having this dick swinging, head butting thing that happens. And so superior, you want to know how to use it at times, but it's very slight. The second posture, go ahead and write this down in the chat. The second one, just so I know you guys are here. Second one is neutral, or put equal. I call it equal posture. I spend 80% of my time equal. Tony Robbins has coached billionaires, and he'll do interventions with people that are like addicted to drugs and things like that. But he connects to them like a friend, like we're the same. And when I would even call companies, say I'll call a company where I was going to go and do a presentation, when I got the boss on the phone and I was going to do a talk, I'd say, hey, John, and I'd ask him some questions, and I'd say, here's what I ultimately want to do. I just want to ask you some questions to make sure we maximize our time together. Together. So there's like 3 commands in there that we're bonding. Not, I'm going to do a talk to your salespeople to get them to buy my thing and then give me money to go to this thing, but I need to talk to you about this. So that's this difference. I'm on the same side of the table. Hey, I just want to connect really quick to make sure that we maximize our time together to really benefit your people. And I do create a distinction against his people, because with what I was doing with sales training, I would get him to tell me that he was spending money on ads, on marketing, but he had people not following up, not prospecting, not doing all the things that he was telling them to do. So I created an us versus them frame, me and John on the same tide against his lazy salespeople. And I'm like, those fuckers are costing you money. If I came in and did this, do you think that would help you? So John and I got on the same table, because eventually I would convince John to fund those people to sign up for Tony's event. Or I connect with the boss now to get them to buy my training to train their lazy ass salespeople. So I get on the same, we're creating a frame there. So we bond. So first posture is superior. Second is equal. Spend most of the time there. And the third, put it in the chat, is inferior. So let me ask you this, and this is a trick question. So I'm going to tell you it's a trick question before I even tell you. Which one of these do you think is the best posture? And it's none of them. Yes, somebody said it. Obviously, it's none of them. What we're getting into with tonality and postures is, remember, we don't want to be monotone, and we don't want to get locked in one posture. Sensory acuity and behavioral flexibility. Somebody put that in the chat. Sensory acuity, acute sensitivity to how this person perceives me, what's going on, are they opening up? And behavioral flexibility, changing my posture, changing where I am. And if somebody stays locked superior, that is strong authority, strong leadership. You know, even some of the best do it. Like, you know, some of the people that I mentioned, they're talking down to their audience. That can work, but you're going to miss a lot of people. And some people, because they have their own ego, they're going to be combative with you, or they're going to think you're a jerk because you're talking down to them. So you don't want to get locked in superior. The other is equal. And I do spend most of my time equal, but you can't get locked in there. That's where, like, your friends. Oh, you know, Dylan's my friend. You know, I owe him some money, but maybe he'll just waive the last payment. You know, he's going to let me pay him later. You know, we have a good bond. Like, I didn't sign up today, but you know, he'll let me sign up later for the same price because we're friends. Don't get locked in equal. And then the third is inferior, where I go inferior. Now, why is this powerful? When I'm inferior, a lot of people drop their guard and they'll open up even more. When I say inferior, I don't mean like I'm an inferior person, but I'll let them have that superior spot. If I'm talking to a room full of millionaires, I will always acknowledge them. I say, wow, I'm humbled to get to be able to share these ideas with people as successful as you. I know you guys have put in a lot of work. And so I want to acknowledge that because I know you're not like everybody else. I'm acknowledging their significance, but eventually I'm going to challenge them a bit too, but I've got to meet them where they are. Because a lot of times when you have a superior audience or a superior person, they're starting to do this posturing thing back to me right away. When I say inferior, I connect in that moment, but I'm about to show you exactly how I flip it. It's really powerful. And when I say inferior, just so you understand this, think about jujitsu. Have you all heard of the jujitsu? You guys know what jujitsu is, yeah? You can go in an inferior position, like on your back, and you can kill somebody. You can go in an inferior position on your back, and you can choke somebody out, break their leg, break their shoulder from an inferior posture. And a lot of times in that position, people get overconfident. So inferior, it's another one. I remember Tony spent this entire day and he trained us on these concepts. And about a week later, I was listening to, and I think this is like internal training, so don't share this anywhere, but has anybody heard of a man named Jay Abraham? Jay Abraham, he's like a brilliant marketer. He's done like billions in marketing. You guys know who he is. If you ever see Jay Abraham speak on stage or an interview, he rambles like crazy. And a lot of what he says just kind of doesn't really make sense. He's brilliant, but whenever they have him on stage at Tony Robbins events, they have somebody on stage with him. They don't let him speak by himself because he'll just go off on tangents and the audience gets lost. And so what happened in this interview, a very young Tony Robbins was interviewing Jay Abraham, who was a mentor, and Tony asked him a question. And Jay begins to go off on a tangent. And Tony goes, listen to me, Jay. He said it in the tone of voice like, shut the fuck up. Listen to me, Jay. So imagine it like this. It's like I'm throwing a punch at you. And I throw a punch at you. What do you want to do? You want to throw a punch back because I just challenge you. Hey, listen. But immediately, as soon as he says, listen to me, Jay, the great thing about you is, and what I respect so much is, I mean, you're the only person in the world to do this. Listen to me, Jay. What I respect and admire so much about you is this. So pattern interrupt, drop inferior, connect equal. And I think the real reason that we're here is to make a bigger impact. I mean, we all want to change the world. We all want to play a bigger game. But the real question is, and he redirected him with a question. Listen, the great thing about you is, I think the real reason that we're here bonding languages. So listen to me, John. You've been selling real estate for a long time. And I know you have more experience than most people, and you've had a lot of results. I have to say, I respect you. It's always so great for me when I get to talk to somebody at your superior skill level who's been in the game for so long. And I think this is really about growth. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we're on this call together. But you know something has to change, doesn't it? I want superior, inferior, equal, superior. Did you guys hear it? Yes? And so this is postures and tonality beginning to mix. Pattern interrupt. And a lot of times your prospects will go off on a tangent. I'll interrupt, I'll connect so they don't feel like rude. I acknowledge something special about them. I make them feel important. I bond, or I just redirect them with a question. And I might say, well, listen, I think you said something really great there. And I respect what you're doing so much. The fact that you've kept going through all these challenges, you'd be surprised how many people just give up. Also, I'm creating an association here. So we'll get to this because it's really powerful. Say I get on a call with somebody and they're like, I can tell within the first 5 seconds, just in their energy, they're resistant. I might say, John, I have to say, I'm so happy to be on this call with you. I was just on a call with another guy, and this guy was so resistant. Like he just had a wall up. And you just know when you talk to people like that, they're never going to be successful. Anyway, happy to be like really dig into it with you because I know we can help you out a lot. I created an association. People that are closed off, they're never going to be successful. So I'm creating a frame and interrupting that pattern at the beginning. It'll take you guys a little bit to do it. And when I pull you guys out, maybe we do it. But once you get to see, there's something that I mentioned called labeling and creating associations. This identity, this negative association. So there's something in NLP called parts integration and parts separation. And so it might sound something like this. They're a bit resistant. They have money concerns. Well, it sounds like there's a part of you that just feels a little bit scared. You know, I know you've gone through this and this and this, and I think we all have that part of ourselves. Some people say it's like their lower self or like their scared inner child. I think we all have that. And so you've got like a part of yourself that feels a little resistant, but I think we also have like a higher part of ourselves. That part that really believes we can do anything. We have this unlimited potential. If that higher version of you was to have a conversation with maybe the younger version of you, or kind of the scared child that's hesitant, what do you think your bigger self would tell your younger self to do? So I'm getting them, I'm labeling them as parts. Well, I'm sure there's a part of you that sounds scared, you know, from what I've heard, but I'm sure there's another part of you, you could call it your highest version of yourself. So I'm starting to separate parts of them. Does that make sense? It takes a while to fully get it, but I want you to see that I'm using some of these frames to create different associations. So it gets a little advanced. But anyway, postures, I gave you the examples of that. Realize this, again, here's what I want you to take from it. Two people cannot occupy the same posture at the same time. When they're really superior, drop in, I can appreciate, you know, oh, I apologize if I offended you. So drop into it. And I think the real reason we're here, and I'll play with that energy a little bit. Too many people, and I'll just bring this up, they've gone through, I've been friends with Jeremy Miner for a long time. I do believe, based on the right context, you should use a lot of permission-based language. Hey, with your permission, if you find it appropriate, you know, could I possibly maybe kind of sort of ask you about potentially doing something someday, kind of sort of, if you don't mind. Too much of that is really weak. But when they're being really, really douchey, you know, use some of this and connect, and you'll begin to flip the script a little bit. Just like I showed you with the Jay Abraham example, listen, inferior, equal, redirect, firm. So you do this enough, it'll be unconscious. They'll get a feeling around you, and we can pull it. We can play with it a little bit more. So this last one right here, I'm going to go through this, and I'm just going to crank because I know we'll be here all night. The second thing I really want you to get from this document is the inner alignment of the person communicating the ideas. So your own inner alignment has a big impact on people perceiving you the way that you want. The word for it is just simply congruency. Congruency means alignment. And so when you meet most people, most salespeople, it's like they've got some script, or their words are here, their actions are here, their thoughts are scattered, and emotionally they're all over the place. But when you meet somebody who's congruent, who's aligned, their beliefs, their words, their actions, their identity, they say what they mean what they say, and there's a weightedness to their words, they're in alignment. And I believe, you could call it spiritual belief or whatever, I believe when you're living in alignment and you have certainty in what you're saying, I believe there's like a force that comes through people where their words land and have power. But if you're living your life in ways that are really incongruent with what you say every day, you're not, like, inside of you, you're not going to feel good about what you're doing, or you're doing it just to get something, not to show up powerfully to serve somebody. And so you've got to be in inner alignment within yourself. So, you know, I put here, not just on the call, but in your life. And, you know, second is building your belief, even when you have evidence of the opposite. That's what I talked about, the Tony Robbins thing, people saying they hated the program, but I had the belief, and my belief in my congruency and what we had, that alone was able to turn people around. When they gave me resistance, my belief was stronger than theirs. And because I owned it, I could shift a lot of those people. So this is like something you must condition for yourself every single day. And I went into that a little bit. This is why the entrepreneur can often sell better than the sales rep, because they've done it. Like, they really understand, like, it's not just their understanding of the person's problem. Like, they just have this gravitas. They know that what they do can help people. And so it's not all the technical stuff. Once you really get an understanding that it's all energy, as Einstein said, everything's energy. Once you have that gravitas, it'll work for you much more powerfully. Emerson said it best: who you are speaks so loudly, people can't even hear what you say. That's why two people with the same script, same offer, same price point can get such crazy different results. So how do we make this practical? Be a growth-minded person. when you are growing and leveling up in your life, not just in your skills, but in what you do and who you are and how you think, you immediately become more attractive. And because you're growing and you're doing the difficult thing, that automatically gives you unconscious permission, like an unconscious feeling of permission, like an authority inside of yourself to get people to do things that are difficult as well. So I put here, thoughts and feelings precede action. So I went into that a bit, but I want to give you this, the law of the mirror. You need to be the prospect you want to create and attract. So you've heard this before, and I hate it the way most sales trainers teach this because it's kind of cheesy because they're trying to sell you something. They're like, hey, if you want people to invest, so this does work. They're like, hey, if you want to invest, you need to be invested. So people use it as a technique, and I can show you how to use it as a technique, but it also has to be true. It has to be really true for you. The law of the mirror, you need to be the prospect you want to attract. Your objections will become their objections because you will unconsciously justify the excuse. So we've done countless trainings with sales teams and let's say it's the same ad, same VSL, same application, same funnel, same everything, 3 different sales reps. One sales rep is getting lots of money objections. Sales rep number 2 is getting lots of spouse objections. Sales rep number 3 is getting lots of uncertainty-based objections. It's the same offer. They should all be getting the similar objections, but salesperson number 1, they hadn't dealt with their own financial shit. So they kept on getting those objections. The second, so it was like a big deal and they hadn't dealt with it themselves. So they didn't know how to help other people deal with it because they were inside, they had the own objection to themselves. Salesperson number 2, they couldn't talk to their spouse about difficult shit. And so they kept on justifying that when they got that excuse. And so the world is going to give you back who you are. And you're going to continue to get that until you deal with it yourself. So this is internal congruency. You got to have it in every area of your life. Standards, integrity, keeping your commitments, pretty self-explanatory. Control the controllables, control your inputs, vibe. So you've handled this again internally, no matter what it is. Pray to Jesus, get money, get a loan, talk to spouse, not a problem. You've handled this 12 billion times. Like you just have to have that. So I'm going to skip over this and we'll send you this. There's some things here on, maybe we do another breakaway training, some stuff on vocal dominance. This is how to be carefree in your communication, shifts in cadence and emphasis. I talked about that a bit. Embedded commands, so you guys really listen to this and take action on it. Or as you guys really listen to this and maybe even get to a place where you're ready to take some new actions. I'm embedding the commands that I want you to do. So there's a slight, I kind of overemphasized it there, but it's very slight. So these are embedded commands and shifts in emphasis. Inflection of tonality. I gave you ideas about, up, neutral. Last thing here is we crank through this. I wish I could do this for you right now, but everybody in their life has an internal relationship to resistance. If somebody is giving you objections, you have an unconscious meaning. You might make it mean something personal. You need to feel good about getting resistance. That's why going to the gym, getting yourself to do hard shit every day will help you stand in the fire with prospects when they are in massive uncertainty in their life and their finances. To hold strong, do difficult shit is going to help you really have this congruency in your life. And the way that I always break it down is like this, to give you a metaphor. By the way, metaphors are really powerful. If there's 2 buildings, a 2-story building and a 50-story building, well, one has a very different foundation. A 2-story building, shallow foundation, a 50-story building, a much deeper, solid foundation. So the height of the pinnacle is determined by the depth and breadth of the foundation. What your foundation is everything beneath the surface. You're rewarded in public for what you practice in private. What goes on in your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs about yourself, your self-concept, working out, doing the things that you know that you should do every single day. That's the foundation. It's what nobody else sees, but you're rewarded in public for what you practice in private. And how high the building goes will be based upon the foundation. How high your income goes will be based upon the strength and depth of your foundation, your self-concept, and your belief in your self-worth and your value. So you've got to have a strong foundation. So that is on that. And so I could do endless stuff. I know that we've gone a little bit long here. I am going to bring up my document, and you guys can unmute yourself as we go through this, because I am going to crank through a couple things here. Dylan, how are we doing right now?
We're doing amazing. I don't
You guys
think
getting
people are
something
able
out
to
of this?
unmute though.
Okay, that's fine. But are you guys getting something out of this? So this is, some NLP stuff. I want you guys to understand a couple frameworks, and then I'll pull you guys out and we'll end with a bang. Does that sound good? Are you guys good with me for like 15 more minutes? Give me a thumbs up if so. Awesome. And so a lot of it's mindset, but I do want to give you guys some tactical examples. And, through the tonality, like you guys are hearing me do some of these things. So I'm not only doing them, I'm showing you the psychology behind them. And when I have people, sensory acuity, behavioral flexibility, pacing and leading. So it's not like a script, like I'm going to be loud here, I'm going to be soft here. It's got to be connected. And I've had thousands of seminars, thousands of conversations, and I've asked so many times, and I'm going to unshare my screen here really quick so you can focus on what I'm saying. I've had so many times where I followed up with my prospects that I sold and ones that I didn't. But I asked them oftentimes a question like, at what point in my presentation, at what point in our conversation did you know that you were going to buy? And it usually wasn't the offer. They were like, man, it was when you asked me that. It was when you said that. It's when you did that thing and you told that story, which could be like a case study. And I know that you guys have some story content inside of your training with Dylan. And so story is really powerful, but it's not just what you say, it's how it lands. And often the context of my seminars, the context of my training with companies, the context of the individual coaching that I've done, a lot of the context that I use, I create a label or an anchor called patterns. So patterns. So I say this all the time, the master skill of all masters is pattern recognition. A master poker player notices that when the guy flinches a little bit, he's bluffing. Michael Jordan sees the basketball player and he knows that when he lifts his shoulder, he's about to fake left. They recognize patterns, recognizing patterns in people, recognizing patterns within themselves, recognizing patterns, buying patterns in people that make them object or buy. And so I would create a lot of these magic selling moments where I'm speaking, but maybe I slow down a little bit and I ask a question in a totally different way. And it lands. And because I've created that moment, people say, man, it was when you asked me that thing in that certain way. That's when I knew I had to do something. And in my talks, for Tony, for me, whatever, I would follow up with people too. And I already created this label of anchors, or this anchor of patterns. And so an objection handler that I've said thousands of times sounds like this. And I just want to give you this tactical thing because you should use this. If somebody's in business, you have like an RI offer. I say, listen, John, a business is just a system that provides value. The biggest chokehold in any business is often the psychology of the business owner. Tony Robbins says this. So we're really just looking at the systems, the process of what you do to get you the results that you have and the results that you don't. A business, again, is a system that provides value. And so we can call it like a system. It's kind of like a pattern. And so while there are patterns in people and companies that make them very successful, there are also patterns that cause people to fail, cause people to stay stuck. John, I see some of those patterns in you. And I want to help you break them right now, if you'll let me. Right now, superior, if you'll let me. See how I softened at the end? I went inferior, so it wasn't challenging. I gave them this power back. There's patterns that cause people to fail. And I see those patterns in you. And I want to help you break them right now, John, if you'll let me. We know we can help you, but really, you're going to have to start taking some risk and making some sacrifice. Do you feel like that's something that you can actually do? And so I'll dig into it and it's going to land. So I'm just pulling you out as an example right now, just so you guys can see it. And if we play around with it, you guys are going to love it. I have made thousands and thousands and thousands of high ticket sales doing that. And then there's metaphors and there's other things too to reassociate them to the process. But this is a deeper than surface level conversation. We're getting into it. And if people give me enough time, I'm going to lock them in. And I mentioned belief was number one. The number one belief that you need to have is that you cannot fail. Michael Jordan. Has anybody heard of the name Michael Jordan? I think Michael Jordan, another GOAT. Michael Jordan said this. Michael Jordan said, I never lost a basketball game. I only ran out of time. If he knew that he had the time, he knows that he'd win. I've never lost a sale. I've only run out of time. And so I need to believe that this person can do it, but it also has to be worth it, not just for them, but for me. Because I know for a fact there is like almost any prospect in the world. If I call them every day, if I coach them, if I was their coach and I like wiped their ass, I woke them up at 5 a.m. and I was their babysitter, like I know I'm going to get the result. If I move into their house and get them to do everything they need to do, I'm saying, look, I know I could help you, but it's not worth it for me. I don't have the time. This is all about getting you results faster. And it sounds like you've been wasting a lot of time, a lot of years, and that's why you're in this predicament. If you had solved this problem 2 years ago, we wouldn't even be having this conversation around money, would we? Listen, the whole reason we're on this call is to get you there faster. Let's say you want to make $1 million. If you make $1 million, are you wealthy? Put it in the chat. Everybody answer this question. If you make $1 million, are you wealthy? I love the no's. The answer is, it depends. What if it takes you 40 years to make $1 million? That's $25K a year. You're in poverty. But what if it takes you 1 year to make $1 million, or 1 month, or 1 day, or like Jeff Bezos, 1 second? Wealth is measured more in time than in money. Wealth has a need for speed, and you've created in yourself a pattern of taking a long time to do things. The whole reason we're having this call, I know that you're going to make your million. I know you're going to get this result, but this is about helping you get it faster, making decisions faster so you can enjoy it longer, so you can spend more time with your family, because that is what you want, isn't it? We got him back in it. Boom. Rejection yesterday. So I'm going to crank through this really quick and then pull you guys out for some questions, and we are going to have some fun with this. And so this is something that Tony said to me when we were going into the superior and all this stuff. So we want to be a leader. So a superior leader, this is what you want to be, has the capacity to lead those individuals who perceive themselves to be superior to their leader. So they're people that think they're better than me. I still connect with them empathetically. I let them have that frame, but I still influence them to produce a higher standard for themselves. So it's not about me versus them, because I know that ultimately there's a next level for them. So I see that you've done really amazing. You got yourself to a certain level, but I guess really what's that next level for you? And I know you've heard this before. It's so cheesy, but you know, it's if a plant's not growing, what is it doing? That's right, it's dying. And you'd be surprised how many people get successful even at your level and they quit growing. And it's like a part of them, what? Part of them just doesn't feel alive. And I'm not saying like you're dying, but they just don't feel alive. And as you think about the first time you kissed somebody, or you drove a car, or maybe you closed a deal, there was an aliveness inside of you, like an excitement inside of you. And right now I know you've got some of that. Would it be okay if I shared with you how you can have even more of that, so you can feel really alive in your business, make a lot more money, but also make a deeper impact? Is that cool? See what I'm doing? I'm creating that gap. We're going to get that gap, no sale. And so a superior leader always knows his range of engagement, his perceived posture, relationship, intent, and knows how to change any of these in a moment's notice and in almost liquid fashion to produce extraordinary results. A superior leader helps people attain an increased sense of identity, pride, growth, and equal or superior skill to himself, emotional mastery, and some form of contribution. Only way to duplicate yourself. I'm going to blaze through these really quick. Levels of relationship. Know that when you get onto a phone call with somebody, they have a relationship with you. They could perceive you as a cheesy salesperson. They could see you as a necessary evil. They could see you as their opponent and they're trying to challenge you. They could see you as an acquaintance, a friend. They could see you like family, or they could perceive you as a mentor and a teacher. So know that they have a level of relationship with you. Obviously, we want to deframe them and change some things to bump that up. Levels of intent to hurt someone. And get this too, you have to be able to put people in pain, but you're not putting people in pain to get them in pain. It's a hurt them and heal them business. You get them associated to the pain so they're open for the solution, but you're ultimately there to serve these people powerfully. But if they're not associated to the pain, you're not going to be able to serve them with your offer. So these are levels of intent. And as it relates to intent, this is a writer downer. Put this in the chat, HILA, HILA, write it down. Does anybody know what this means? I started teaching this like maybe 15 years ago. So a lot of people teach this now. Anybody know what it means? No, just a no. All right. So these are levels of intent, but all you need to know is this for HILA, high intention, low attachment. High intention, low attachment. When you have a high intent, hey, I know we can help you. Our mission is to serve the world. And I know that like if you just do this, you can really do this. We believe in you so much. Attached. High intention. Like here's what we're up to in the world. I believe in you. But ultimately, we can't believe in you more than believe in yourself. So at the end of the day, it's, are you willing to make a bet on yourself? Do you believe in yourself enough to bet on yourself? Because we're going to be fine either way. But this is ultimately a decision you need to make so that you can actually have things that you just said that you wanted. Does that sound like something that you can see yourself doing? So I've got a high intention, but a low attachment. So I can challenge them in that space. So it's an energy that comes off really, really well. So just remember that, and you want to create for yourself, I don't know, like your end of day routine or your morning routine. Like for me, and I can send you kind of a document that became a checklist. We call it the 10 clarities. I had like 10 things in my call that I knew were going to be problems. And so I'll send you this document over. It's a different document, but you might have a checklist of things like states that you need to be in: high intention, low attachment. Was I attached? Did I get them really associated to a higher attention? Did I have the intention? So you want to just focus on that. So I'm going to crank through these really, really quick. We're going to skip over this one because it's long. This is the triad thing that I spoke about. So getting people in the right emotional state, what I call the buying state, will be based on their focus. So you do want to master about 12, 13 different types of questions and a few metaphors. So connecting questions, situation questions, background questions, problem awareness questions, solution awareness questions, probing, clarifying, transition, commitment-based questions. You want to have some of these questions, like master like 14 different types of questions. And there's just like 5 or 6 questions for each one of those different types. Situation, what are you doing now? How long have you done it? What got you started? Problem awareness question, you guys have probably all heard. The guy that invented this is Michael Oliver. He's a coach in our program. He was Jeremy Miner's mentor. This is one of my favorite questions. If you're not using this, it's so ninja. It's my favorite problem awareness question. What are you doing now for your XYZ? They say this, and they may be kind of boasting. We're making $500,000 a month. Well, John, it sounds like things are going fairly well for you. I'm curious, what would you change about your situation if you could? So they say they're doing XYZ. Okay, and do you like how that's been going for you? So notice there too, they tell me they're doing this really great thing. And I can say, oh, wow, that sounds great. I mean, do you like how that's going? They're going to say, yeah. But if I do this, if they tell me that they're making $1 bajillion a month, and I'm like, well, okay, it sounds like things are going fairly well for you. I mean, I guess, do you like everything about your business? I know you've made a lot of money, but do you like every process that you have right now? So I'm skeptical. And the way that I ask that question is infusing doubt. Did you guys hear it? Yeah. They're like, well, it's going good. Okay. And just to help me understand, I mean, is there anything that you would change? I mean, if you could, they say wave a magic wand, if there's like some next level, some vision, is there anything that you would change about how you're running your business right now? I mean, is there anything you change if you could? Well, I mean, our leads are really expensive. Well, I mean, it's always great to make more money. Okay. And when you say more money, does that mean that your cost of acquisition is really high? Does that mean you have high overhead? Just to help me understand, how do you mean by that? So we're going to get into it. Or they might be resistant. And you say, you've asked this question before. Hey, John, I'm just curious. What was it that made you decide to invest the time to be here on this call today? Oh, I'm just seeing what you guys got, just looking for information. Not a problem. Just curious, what has you out here talking to strangers you met on the internet, looking for information? Tell me a little bit about what's going on in your business right now that has you even here right now. Well, I saw your ad and I just kind of, saw the thing and I was just kind of curious. That's great. And we appreciate you guys, you checking in to have this conversation. Typically when people hop on a call like this, they're kind of having a problem with this, or this, which sounds most like your situation. Well, typically when we do these calls and we connect with people, at your level, I saw the application, they're having some trouble with like lead gen. They're having some trouble with like the call show up rates or the closing percentage due to some objections and things like that just isn't at the level that they want. Which one of those kind of sounds most like your situation? Well, I'd say it's kind of this. Okay. What makes you say that? I'd say it's, maybe we're not handling objections enough. Okay. Thanks for sharing. What makes you say that? Now we got them back into it. Did you see what I did? So they were being resistant a few times. We still got the thing. We're going to get the thing. We got to get the thing. We want to we want to find that problem and we're going to get to it. In the prefrontal cortex, like we also in Cialdini talks about this, there's something called recency bias. If I say to all of you, I'm like, hey, are you guys struggling with this, or this? Which one sounds most like you? You're gonna say, oh, it's kind of a combination. And I'm like, what makes you say that? So a lot of times people don't know. There's that classic phrase that says, match the conversation that's already on your prospect's mind. A lot of people don't have a lot on their mind. We're all distracted attention spans of goldfish human beings these days. And you ask people on a poignant question, a lot of times they don't know. And so we prime them. Typically it's this, or this. And they're going to say, oh yeah, that's it. They didn't have anything on their brain. We're going to give them something and they're going to tell us, and then we're going to make them justify it. What makes you say that? So really quick, emotional state. You got to understand questions, not just the questions to say, but know why you're saying the question that you're asking. So why you're asking and how you're asking it is absolutely crucial. Second, and this is really the NLP stuff, is to be a molder and master of meaning. So human beings are meaning-making machines, and so we can change the meaning. We can change the meaning of what it means to invest, what it means to talk to their family, what it means to be a millionaire. We can change the meaning, and you're going to hear some disempowering meanings. That's why they're stuck. And then physiology. And so really quick, I'm just going to crank through this. Questions create focus. Questions are key. I want to ask you guys this. And some of you might know the answer to this. You guys can guess it. Actually, here's what I'm going to do. Let me ask you this. At Disney World, has anybody been to Disney World? Disney World or Disneyland? Justice says no. Feel sorry for you, brother. It is like the happiest place on earth. Let me ask you this. The number one question asked at Disney World is this, and this is an obvious. Number two will not be as obvious. Number one question that the staff gets asked is, where's the bathroom? That's obvious. The number two most asked question of the staff, almost equal to question number one. They get asked this question just as much as where's the bathroom. The question that they're asked every day, thousands and thousands of times, is this: what time is the 4 o'clock parade? That is the number one question the staff is asked. What time is the 4 o'clock parade? Now we hear that and we say, well, that is a really dumb question. But you don't get to work at Disney or a world-class organization if you judge people. And so I want you to understand that always there is a question behind the question. If you've been to Disney World, they do the 4 o'clock parade and it goes around in a circle. So what time, they're asking, what time is the 4 o'clock parade right here? Hey, they're saying the 4 o'clock parade, is there going to be a crowd? Do I need to get to a certain spot? If I go in and I get an early spot, does it mean I need to be there like an hour early? Or are we have to be all the way in the back because there's going to be too much of a crowd? And if I go to the front, is there going to be a lot of people? Because if I need to go to the bathroom, I might lose my spot. What is the question behind the question? They have questions about price. They have questions about guarantees. And it's not just a thing. There's a question behind the question. We want to peel back the onion and really find out, and we can't just say, what makes you ask that? You know, we want to use a little bit more tact. And hopefully by now in your discovery, especially if they're challenging you, you're going to know that they have a cry for help and that there's something going on that you did not uncover yet. So we'll get to that. So I put here, I just threw this in here just as an example of skilled questions. And so I put, turn your knowledge into USA, into skilled questions. USA is unique selling advantage. So instead of saying something like, our solar energy will save you money, you can turn that into a question. I guess is not having to pay for your energy bill and actually owning it. Would that be important to you? Instead of saying this offer, product, policy, thing, feature also has this feature, I could say, well, would having this that would help you cover this be important to you, be of interest to you? And so I know that you're really great at sales, and we have, you know, scripts and processes that we put in 8-figure companies. We have processes that Tai Lopez uses. If we could not only share with you those scripts, but show you exactly how to use them on your calls and show you how Tai is marketed to get himself to what is now about $100 million. If we just gave all that to you, do you think that would be able to help you? Do you hear how that sounds different than just telling people what we have? Instead of saying your financial planning solutions will guarantee returns, say, could you tell me, I guess, having guaranteed returns on your investment, is that on the list of things that you'd be looking for if you were to make an investment today? Having some more guarantee? Well, yeah, so they're selling themselves based on the structure of the question. Instead of saying that you have the best quality XYZ, is having high quality this and that, would that be important to you? So we just want to ask better questions, turn a lot of our statements into questions. Boom. We want to let them be part of the process, make them get clear about their problems, get them to tell you in their words what they need, want, desire, and cost of inaction is COI. So cost of inaction question is really powerful. Let them be responsible for owning their problems, and more importantly, be responsible for being a part and owning the solution. So this will be probably one of the last slides I go into. There's a series of frames that you need to understand in order to be successful in selling. Everything is a frame. Frames control focus. Right now, if you look out the front window of your home versus the back window, you see different stuff. And sometimes they're in a frame like this, they're saying, tell me the price. Well, I'm sure your intention isn't just to hold on to the money that you have. Your real intention is being here is to multiply the money that you have to make sure you never have to worry about money again. That's the real intention, isn't it? So we can take their focus off of this and change their focus. So really it's about this. So when we look at the bigger picture, so when we chunk down, isn't it more important? So we can change their focus, and we can pull apart belief by really understanding frames. And this will be the last one I go into. I put humans are meaning-making machines. And before you can reframe the meaning of the call, the offer, the investment, or anything else in the mind of the prospect, you must have possession of the influencer's state to begin with. You must be able to expand into a powerful belief system despite what feedback you have in front of you. Leaders see it as it is, not worse, have a vision that we enroll people into, and we believe that they can make it how they need to see it. Don't react, respond, don't contract, expand. What's going on inside of you must match what you feel inside of you, as well as what you truly believe in self, others, time, money, possibility, situation, etc. So I got like a whole bunch of stuff on reframing, and I'll give you this one. So there's 4 basic strategies to change the frame of reference or belief structure. So we can change the meaning. I gave you that example in the beginning, changing the meaning of investing. We can change what causes. Okay, I can understand you're in a challenging spot. What do you think caused you to be in that place, in that situation in the first place? So what caused, we can get them to associate the fact that what put them in there is what caused it. So we can change the cause. We can change the comparison. Hey, that's a lot of money compared to what? We can change the logical levels. And I'll go through this one really quick because this is a fun one. Has anybody seen this before? The logical levels of NLP? Dylan, you probably have. So I want you to understand this from like a conceptual thing, and then I'll make it juicy for you. So we've all heard this phrase, everywhere you go, there you are. People want to go from another sales job to another job, or go from e-com to some FBA high ticket. People jumping around all the time. But everywhere they go, there they are, because behavior trumps environment. So as far as getting people to make changes in this call, there's some distinctions that we want people to make, but there's also an understanding that we need to have about the hierarchy of people's values and beliefs and how we can chunk them up. And so what's more powerful than behavior or environment is behavior. And some people, like, in order to get somebody to make change, we could say, oh, well, you need to have certain skills or capabilities. So if somebody is not doing what they need to do, well, they need certain skills to change their communication with themselves or others. They need to change their skills as it relates to sales or marketing or business or copywriting. They need to change their skills. And while that's important, what's even more important are their beliefs. So say we have two people, one person has all the skills. They sign up for every sales course, every marketing course, they keep on going back to school. They get their MBA, PhD, ABCD. They're just doing all the things. They got all these skills. But the reason they keep on getting more information is because they don't believe in themselves, and they believe that they need to get one more thing, buy one more course, but they just do the thing. You take somebody else that has like zero skills, no skills, but they have 100% belief in themselves, that person is going to win. This person uses their skills as a crutch and doesn't do anything, but this person that believes in themselves, if I take the person that has the skills and I don't even change their skills at all, if I can just change their beliefs about who they are, about what the sales call is, and about how powerful they get to be for people, it changes the way they show up. If you have the right beliefs and the right skills, you're really powerful. But all of that is dependent upon your identity. So again, Sigmund Freud said the most powerful force inside the human psyche is to remain consistent with how you see yourself. So to create an identity for yourself as a person of influence, a person who makes changes, as a powerful human being who is there to touch, move, and inspire people into action, to have this identity is absolutely key. And we teach a process called identity ascension, but essentially even what we're doing in these calls is we're creating an identity for people. We're getting them to align with the values that they need to have in order to become the person they need to be so they can do the thing. So we're creating an identity for them. And that's what your offer should do at the highest level. But there's one level above that, and I'll end off here. How does a man become a Superman? How does a person grow in their life in every way? They have a mission that's bigger than themselves. You take a dude like Martin Luther King, a badass dude. Why did he become a legend? A mission bigger than himself. It made a man become a Superman. You look at like Nelson Mandela. You look at a lot of these people, Mother Teresa. They had a strong identity, but the reason that they grew, the frame that they held in their communication, was to create the context as to what was happening on this call to align people with the identity they need to have and challenge them to grow into a vision that was bigger than themselves, whether it was for their kids or their family or whatever. And, I work in self-development for going on like 18 years now. And we all, I love self-development. Self-development changed my life. And people want to be self-confident, self-actualized. They want to support themselves, take care of themselves. They want to, do all these things for themselves. They want to have this personal branding for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with self-development, but it's not going to make you grow at the level that you could, because what needs to happen is when you have this mission inside of you that it's all about yourself, if you're talking to somebody on a sales call and they're all about themselves, you feel it. It's all about themselves. People say, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to develop myself. It can't just be about yourself. It needs to be connected to something bigger than you. And so imagine there's a person. Imagine there's a young guy. Maybe it's one of you, has a job, and you're working your sales gig and you're making decent money. And then you don't feel like working anymore. You feel like taking a day off. So you just don't do it. You just don't show up. Or you kind of show up, but you half-ass it. Take that same person, because their needs, they're already supported. You don't need anything. But let's take that same guy, take that same girl. And now they have a kid. You have a child. And the same day, you don't want to go to work. You don't want to show up. But you do show up, and you show up strong because you show up for your family. You show up for your kids. And you show up for something outside of you, more of you shows up. You expand who you are because you're not just showing up for yourself, you show up for your family and you grow. When you show up for your community, when you show up for your industry, now you're showing up for people that aren't even related to you. You become bigger. When you show up for your mission, when you show up for your purpose, when you show up for humanity, you grow as a person. So all the skills in the world that you get, you will implement them faster if you just aren't attached to getting your own needs met for income or validation or whatever. But if you have a mission that you grow to that's bigger than yourself, people are going to connect with you in a different way because they're going to see that there's something there. There's something resonant, but it's got to be real for you. And then I guarantee you, once you have that mission in place, the skills are going to come to you a lot faster because you're not going to be learning the skills just to get the skill. You're going to be getting the skills because you have a belief and you're a person with a vision and a mission bigger than themselves. And so they're going to ingrain inside of you on a whole different level, and you're going to master them a lot faster. So I got a whole bunch of other trainings here, but I don't want this to be like a 20-hour thing. I figured we go like 90 minutes or 2 hours. And so I skipped over a bunch. I will send you the document on the original sheet, but let me know if there's any questions or anything, or if you guys want to dig into anything.
If you guys have questions, just drop them in the chat. I'm sure there's gonna be a bunch, so we'll take a few. But Eli, man, I appreciate this. This was fucking awesome, man. I owe you one.
No problem, man. Yeah, I'm excited that there's so many. I didn't know how many folks would be here, and most of you guys stayed through. There was like 80 some people in here, 87 I looked at one time, and most of you are here. It's like two people with the same script. And so a lot of you have great scripts, and I've gone into Salesforce.com. I've gone into so many companies, and great people, great scripts, but they're missing some of this. And once you get this and the skills, but I tell you, it's like you still need the skills, your relationship to resistance, your relationship to people, your relationship to what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then that mission and vision to be an amazing communicator, not just with others, but with yourself. When you have that mission that you're growing into, you're going to pick things up a lot faster. And it's going to make you also do the training that you need. Like, you should probably watch this training again.
Yeah.
And you're going to have repetition. I used to go to Tony Robbins events before there was all the smartphones and all of that. And I would go, we weren't allowed to, but I would take a recorder and I would record Tony doing his pitch and his close. And I would record Tony on stage. And then I'd go home and I'd hit play and I would type out manually. I would transcribe hours of Tony's talks. It would take me hours and hours, and I'm a slow typer. And then I'd look at what I typed and I would take a pink highlighter and I would highlight all of the questions because I knew that he was fractionating people and changing their focus. Tony never speaks for more than probably 90 seconds or 2 minutes while asking a question, because questions engage the mind and questions control focus. I could ask you about your shoes or your mom or the best day of your life or the worst day of your life. What did it cost you? What do you regret? And whatever you focus on, you feel. And so as we start to unpack these buying states, they're recipes to put somebody in the right buying state, just like having a recipe for a chocolate cake. What are the ingredients? Chocolate, flour, sugar, there's certain ingredients that bake up the cake. To bake up a buying state, patterns of focus, patterns of meaning, patterns in their physiology that put them in this buying pocket. And having the right sensory acuity and behavioral flexibility will help you put people in a pocket, because some people are going to be overconfident. They're like, well, we're doing $1 bajillion a month, 300 grand a month. And, I don't think we need you, just seeing what you guys are up to. We need to take away some of their certainty. Some people really insecure. They're like, I'm making $2,000 a month. I hope I can make $3,000 a month someday. Say, look, there are people out here. I tell you, I meet some people making hundreds of thousands a month in your business, and they're not that smart. They just have the right system. So I want to introduce you to something here really quick here that I think is powerful to understand: negative presuppositions and positive presuppositions. A negative presupposition, Grant Cardone does it a lot, Dan Locke. It's like, hey, you suck really bad. You're going to continue to fucking suck. That's why you need my process. Negative presupposition. A positive presupposition is this. Jason, I can see that you're here right now. And man, I can tell just by the fact that you're here, you're amazing, man. Like you're making 5, 6K right now. Somebody like you, and you could be making 20, 30 grand a month easy. I mean, you already got what it takes. You just don't have the right process. I mean, we could help you give you this process, but like, man, you are already so much ahead of so many other people. Like who you are is freaking, man, you're badass, dude. You just don't have the right process. You hear how that was different. Now it's like, I gave him an identity. He just needs this thing, as opposed to you suck so bad and you're going to continue to suck unless you have my thing. 2 different ways. Does that make sense? Besides breaking down HYLA framework, besides the tone, it's also important for the kind of question that you ask. Yep, 100%. So yeah, presuppositions are really powerful. I label people as competent and powerful, but also know that if somebody is overconfident, I can take away their certainty. And I want you guys to think about this. How do we take away somebody's certainty? How do you take away your own? The wrong questions or the right questions, depending on your outcome. If you question yourself or your script or your offer enough, you begin to doubt it. If you question anything too much, you begin to doubt it. So Dylan, since you can unmute yourself. Dylan, let me ask you a question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Dylan, what is your name?
Dylan.
How do you know?
It's a good question, actually.
I mean, who told you that? Did you give yourself that name, or did somebody just tell you?
My parents gave me that name.
Parents. I don't know your parents personally. I'm sure they're amazing people, but just tell me this. Have your parents ever said something to you that wasn't 100% true?
Yeah.
So you're saying they don't always tell the truth, but they told you that your name is what? That it's Dylan.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Well, obviously his name's Dylan, but I'm asking him questions. And if you ask somebody enough questions about anything, so if there's sales, well, let me ask you about this specific part of your process. When you get that, I guess, kind of explain to me this. So getting people and questioning them enough about process, community, support, accounting, anything.
Yeah.
So we're having questions that cause doubts. And some people say they're making 300 grand a month. Well, it sounds like you've done fairly well. And you try to get that next level out of them, but they're overconfident. It's interesting. I just talked to a guy and it's true. I do know people in their 20s that are making millions every month. I'm just curious. I mean, you've obviously done great. I hear this. What do you think they're doing differently that you aren't? Why do you think it's taken you so long? Getting them to doubt their own process can begin to drive down their certainty, make them more uncertain, which will put them more in the buying pocket. Does that make sense?
I talked about this. Yeah, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago too, about challenging somebody's beliefs or their belief system as a whole, really. That's powerful.
And so challenging their beliefs, sometimes, and you can lean into it, softeners, it's like, you said something really interesting. If I could ask you, or could I challenge you on that? Would you be open to looking at that a different way? And I'm just curious, I guess, how did you come up with that? Just so I understand. So these are ways that are permission-based language. And sometimes you can drop that big energy and challenge people really strong. But if they're like really held onto this, you want to use some softeners as we begin to open it up. And as people are talking about it a lot, you can interject at those moments where they pause. Okay, when you said that it was just what they told you, or you just always did it that way. I'm curious, did you ever begin to doubt it at some point, or have you seen people with the same process make more than you or do it faster? Why do you think that is? And so we can start to probe into something, and people will become more open to your solution once we put them in the right state. Does that make sense? Awesome. Yeah, challenging beliefs is really, really powerful. There's a framework that we use for it. We call it FATE: falsify, attack, truth, evidence. A lot of you think that sales is manipulative. That is completely untrue. Nothing moves in this world until it is sold. Think about your iPhone. Think about these, and you loved buying these things. So it is completely bullshit that somebody would think that selling is manipulative. The truth is, selling is serving. Can you think of a time? And then I'll make evidence. So falsify, attack. The truth is, and then I give evidence to reinforce the belief that I install. So there's frameworks for all of this stuff, but just, have an understanding of these people need you, and you can pull apart and challenge them. If you have the right intention, they'll open up to you and they will love you for it. You can change your life. What are those again? What is what? Description for warrior tonality. So if you imagine like a cadence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's kind of a flow like this. It was on a wave. And then warrior, be more punchy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then lover. It's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Right now, you have a real opportunity to shift everything in your life, because your decisions determine your direction in life, and your direction will lead you to a destiny, or what you call your destination. Right now, you're in a place that you do not like. And so would it be okay with you if we really looked at the path that you're on? Because if nothing changes, what? Nothing changes. And you're here because you do want to make change, don't you? So it's like I'm playing with a little bit, and I can be firm, soften, be in that normal cadence, sage, warrior, lover, and sometimes the jester, or I might throw things off and just be a little bit different. And that'll spice it up a bit, especially when you're speaking, to help people be unconsciously engaged with you. Falsify, attack, truth, evidence. Yep, those are the ones.
Eli, have you ever thought about it being a voice actor?
No, you know what's crazy? I was voted the quietest kid in high school, massively insecure.
Yeah.
I had a big gap in my teeth. And so I mumbled a lot, and I didn't want people to hear me. So nobody could ever understand anything I said because I had this big gap. And then I got braces on my teeth my senior year of high school. A lot of guys don't know my story. My whole story is we were like the poorest people in town. We lived on less than $14,000 a year. We got down to our last dollar. My mom had a talk with me. She's like, we're pretty much out on the street next week. I don't know what we're going to do. Had our last dollar. My mom played the lottery and she won $7 million. She gave away most of the money. But the first thing I wanted when she won that money was braces. I got braces myself in high school. I had to go to school. But I still had the insecurity. My gaps in my teeth were fixed, but I still communicated like this.
Yeah.
So every day, once I got a sales job, because I still mumbled in my first sales job, I sold dental products over the phone to dentists, but I mumbled and I stuttered and people couldn't hear me. And I realized, because you had to hear your own calls, people would hang up on me. People bowled me over. What's this all about? And you listen to your own calls with a manager. And I was like, man, I fucking suck. And so I worked on it. And every day I do affirmations on the way to work. I drive a motorcycle and I'd have like a pencil in my mouth like this. And I'd say the alphabet, or I would say affirmations, and I would force my mouth to enunciate words. And I'd really focus on it. And I did all these vocal exercises, and then I got into acting, and I would do all these things. And I would focus on it a lot. And then when I saw Tony Robbins speak at this big stage, the way that he commanded the room, and the way that he'd be humorous, or he'd do this, and he'd change so many different things, and you were connected. And he was doing some things with his voice. And I was like, man. And when you hear somebody with a powerful voice and they speak on stage or whatever, it makes you pay attention. And I was like, I'm going to fix that. So it didn't happen for me overnight, but I worked on it a lot. So I appreciate that. So those are some tactical things that you can do as you listen to your calls. If you are mumbly, stuttery, uncertain, realize that's costing you money. Realize that it is fixable, and you should work on it like now.
All righty. Let's wrap up here.
Awesome.
I think some people are asking about the documents. I think you'll send those over to me and I'll upload them or something. So yeah, you guys will get access to that. Eli, thank you so much, man, for coming on. This was fucking awesome. I dropped it earlier in the chat. I don't think there's anybody that I know better than Eli to train on tonality and use of your voice for sales. So this was amazing. I see you dropped the file here. You guys can download it. I'll give you guys a second. This is dope. I'll download this too. Yeah, if you guys want to learn more about Eli's stuff or connect with him, hit him up on social media, Instagram, Facebook. He has some awesome Facebook posts. I always get a laugh, especially when I start going through the comment section. Shit's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. It's, I heard this one time, funny equals money. And I can't tell you how many dates I've had or clients I've gotten because somebody said something crazy and I challenged them in a humorous way in a comment. And people became like a super fan because everybody sees it.
Yeah.
And so other salespeople too might do something and I say something that's humorous. And then a lot of those people end up following me. Funny equals money, not goofy, smart, challenging, witty, non-abrasive. It helps.
That's awesome.
So cool, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging on.
Thanks so much for jumping on, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, buddy.
Awesome. Did everyone get some value out of this?
Awesome. If you guys could really quick, the last like, 2
Put a
minutes,
one in the chat.
put your takeaways. If you guys got like one takeaway, it could be postures, could be Hyla, whatever. Like what's something. And so you don't have to even say it here, but you might want to go through this. You have the document there. Like actually apply this. Make sure that you can recall. Because I asked Tony how he started to become so skilled so fast. When he'd go to an event or training like this, he would mentally do a mental dump. He would try to do active recall of everything that he learned to see how much he could recall from it without looking at his notes. And then he would look at his notes again. Then he would actually look at his notes and then he'd do another active recall to see what his brain missed. Because you want to be able to recall this. You know, a lot of you are drowning in training and you just go through it. And Dylan in his course, he'll say, hey, now do this. You got to actually do it. Do it, get it in your nervous system. So that's why you become unconsciously competent, but you gotta have the reps. So 3 types of communication, multi-position, interjection. I love it. So take this, apply it. And Dylan, thanks, man. Thanks for letting me have me
you,
come
man.
on and
Thank
share some
you.
stuff with the peeps.
Guys, what a way to start the week.
Boom.
Shit. I know I gotta step up on Wednesday now on our next call. I gotta get something ready for you guys. Yeah, I'm gonna upload this, guys. I know everybody wants to go through this a couple times. I'm gonna go through it a couple times too, but let's wrap up. Eli, I'm gonna be back in Miami pretty soon, so I will see you in a few weeks. We have an event actually as well, May 6th.
May 6th.
In Miami.
Yeah, hit me up. Maybe I'll come to it. Maybe let's do dinner or something like that.
Maybe,
But,
maybe we'll do something fun.
yeah.
All right, thanks again, Eli. Everybody have an awesome night. I will see you guys on tomorrow's training. Peace, love, and happiness. See you
Awesome.
guys.
Have a blessed night, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eli.